The PlayStation, or PS1, codenamed PSX, is a home video game console developed and marketed by Sony Computer Entertainment, now Sony Interactive Entertainment. It was released in Japan on December 3, 1994, followed by the North American release on September 9, 1995, and Europe on September 29, 1995, and other regions. The Sony PlayStation is one of my favorite consoles of all time. Growing up, I initially didn't have a PS1 because it was a little bit before my time, but when I got my PS2, I was able to explore the PS1 because the PS2 was backwards compatible. Titles like Resident Evil, Spyro, and Crash Bandicoot, nah, I have a love-hate relationship with these games. Recently exploring more deeply into the PS1's vast library, Tall Infinity, such a hidden gem. However, I want to delve into the realm of the lost and canceled PS1 games, titles that never saw the light of day, whether it was due to controversy or financial issues. Also, for a quick disclaimer, some of the topics in this video will get a little dark. But before we go further, I can see you. I can see that you're not subscribed. It will be lovely if you please subscribe to my channel. It helps me be able to make the videos that I can make, and it helped me be able to be monetized. So please subscribe. Thrill Kill. Thrill Kill is a canceled 1998 fighting game for the Sony PlayStation. Thrill Kill was considered a technical feat for the PlayStation for allowing 4 players to fight simultaneously in the same room. Probably would have required the multi-tap though. Although this technical feat was overshadowed by the brutality and controversy surrounding the game. Set in an urban version of hell, these characters were all damned souls fighting for another chance in the mortal world, watched over by Haruka, the goddess of secrets, who have organized the Inferno tournament and promised the winner reincarnation on Earth. Other content included revealing BDSM and fetish costumes, players with amputated limbs and other handicaps, and violent and sexual moves with names such as bitch slap, swallow this, and head muncher, which of these were later changed due to controversy. However, the team worked effortlessly to make the game more marketable by getting rid of the sexual BDSM elements and changing the names of some of the characters. Thrill Kill finished development and it was ready to be shipped. Just a few weeks before shipping, the game was cancelled by EA because they didn't want to publish such senselessly violent video game, as they felt it would harm their image. EA buddy, you have already harmed your image by your greed. They also stated that they found the game so offensive that they would not even consider selling it if it was released by another publisher. However, former employees who had worked on the game later released full versions online along with various beta versions. All files are widely accessible through file sharing platforms and can be played using emulators. Side note, I wonder if the game works on real hardware and if it would use the multi-tap. The multi-tap is a peripheral made for the PS1. They also made one for the PS2. There was a nice amount of games that supported the multi-tap, including Twisted Metal 4 and Fighting Force. I could be wrong about Fighting Force though. PIG, or simply Pig, is a 3D platform adventure game that was being developed by Team 17 for the PlayStation and PC, with a planned release in spring 1999. The project began around 1996, inspired by the success of Super Mario 64 and the 3D platforming trend of the late 90s. Despite having some promising ideas, Pig was ultimately cancelled after more than 2 years of development. The only evidence of the game's existence is its announcement in a Total Control magazine, issue 1, November 1998, where the studio showcased many of their projects, including Phoenix Stunt Grand Prix, Project WM, and Worms Armageddon. Pig's gameplay would have followed a similar style of popular games in the same genre as Banjo-Kazooie, with the main character as being a pig named George working as a private investigator. This explains the title's acronym, Private Investigator George, hired to solve the mysterious disappearance of a bunch of piglets kidnapped by the evil Dr. Goten in this strange, puzzle-filled, fun-dazzle magical land theme park. 8 theme areas were planned, including Mars, the Arctic, fairy tales, and a volcano, each with 3 to 4 sub-levels, totaling 4 unique environments filled with traps and puzzles. Players could enjoy various mini-games featuring pig-style arcade versions of classic and surreal segments, like George being swallowed by a giant pumpkin or shrinking in size. George would wear often different outfits for each climate, such as a sweater and a hat for the snow, while over 60 NPCs, including friends and foes, populated the world. It sounds a little bit too ambitious for the PS1, but anyway. Due to financial problems, Pig, along with other games Team 17 were working on, were cancelled in favor of Worms, a series that guarantees money and is successful. Unlike Kill Thrill or Thrill Kill, there is no available ISO file. Yoyo was a platform game that was being developed by Magic Arts Studio for the original PlayStation. It was designed to be similar to the Crash Bandicoot games, but with a monkey as the main protagonist. Unfortunately, the project was cancelled for reasons that remain unknown. Information about this title is scarce. The only thing that is left is a few screenshots and a 55-second clip of gameplay. Gen 13 is a cancelled action game that was developed around 1997 for the PC, PlayStation, and Sega Saturn that was going to be published by EA and developed by Grey Matter. It was based on the same comic book franchise. The gameplay resembles Earthworm Jim, allowing players to control one of the 5 Gen 13 characters. In team-up levels, the AI controls additional characters, while in two-player mode, both players actively control their characters. The game features flexible design that accommodates various scenarios, including side-scrolling fighting, vertical shooting, static screen action, and zoom cinematic sequences and forced scrolling. After a few months of programming, Grey Matter completed 2 interactive levels, an arena mode, and a full motion video for the PlayStation and PC. They created 3 characters and various enemies for the side-scrolling levels, plus 4 characters and a boss for the arena. However, a business dispute with EA led to Grey Matter's closure, resulting in all employees losing their jobs. Due to the costs involved and the waning popularity of Gen 13, EA decided it was not feasible to engage in another developer and chose to cut their losses. A tech demo was made by Real Time Associates, and the prototype by Grey Matter was leaked onto the internet. Superman: The New Adventures, commonly referred to as simply Superman, is a cancelled action game that was set to be released for the PlayStation. It was published by Titus Interactive and developed by Blue Sky Software between 1998 and 2000. The game was based on the animated television show Superman, the animated series. Initially, the game was supposed to be a port of the Nintendo 64 game. Yes, that game. However, over the years, it's unknown that the development of Superman 64 was plagued by constraints between Titus Interactive and the game's licensor, DC Comics and Warner Bros. After about a year of development, Superman underwent another redesign. In April 1999, the tragic Columbine shooting occurred, which significantly impacted the video game industry, as the media were quick to blame video games as a contributing factor to the tragedy. Naturally, rather blame anything else but the critical lack of mental health treatment. I don't know how true this is. It's rumored that Titus, the developer, abruptly shifted the game's focus from battling Lex Luthor's henchmen to fighting robots. Supposedly, the developers were no longer to allow human on human combat or realistic looking weapons in the game. This change transformed much of the game's gameplay into much more puzzle based experience involving switch pulling mechanics, which differ significantly from both the animated show and the N64 version. Once the game was redesigned, it was planned to be released for June 2000. The title was ultimately cancelled when the license had expired, preventing Titus from securing it again. Beneath is a cancelled action adventure game that was in development by Presto Studios in the mid to late 90s. Said to be published by Activision for the PlayStation and PC, the game was quite hyped at the time. It was presented as a Tomb Raider killer, with such lines as deeper than any tomb and more dangerous than any woman. The marketing blurbs were made that way because the protagonist is a man named Jaguar and they wanted to be rivals with idols. Presto set out to create a game featuring Jack, an early 20th century adventurer searching for his missing father, who vanished during a failed polar expedition. In the tradition of H.G. Wells and Jules Verne, Jack discovers a unique underground world inhabited by three interconnected societies: Trilotites, Marlocks, and Insectoids. The players will explore their connections and uncover the mysteries behind their intentions. However, Presto Studios was unable to keep up with the demands of creating their ambitious 3D adventure game. They were way more experienced in developing pre-rendered point-and-click adventures such as Journeyman Project series and Myst. Creating a full 3D action adventure game proved to be a challenging task for the team, especially with the high competition for the numerous Tomb Raider clones that were being released on the PlayStation. Beneath was cancelled in 2002 and the studio was closed down after the release of their Xbox game, Whacked. Strike Jaguar is a cancelled shoot 'em up that was in development in the late 90s, planned to be released by GAPS for the PlayStation. The game features some original mechanics for the vertical shoot 'em up, with multi-route systems that will create a new series of levels each time you play, including a rare hidden areas as well, and the combination attacks when playing co-op with friends. Screenshots and information about Strike Jaguar were shared on Gap's old website, but the game was ultimately cancelled when it was only about 10% complete. It appears that a former developer from Gaps reused some of Strike Jaguar's sprites to create a different shoot 'em up for the PC, which they released for free on their website. Mythos is a cancelled first-person shooter set in ancient Greece that was in development by DigiFX Interactive around 1996 to 1997, planned to be released on the PlayStation, Sega Saturn, and PC. Players will take on the role of an ancient Greek demigod who had to rescue the land from the clutches of Hecate, the evil goddess of the underworld. Experience 15 unique magical weapons through exploration and combat, including lightning bolts, magical spears, fireballs, and transformation spells. Navigate a fully 3D rendered world with randomly changing environments of land, air, and sea. Explore 12 levels, each featuring challenging boss monsters. Mission types include search and rescue, demolish, and defend villages. Unique day and night missions provide an evolution of gaming experience with real-time simulations that shift from day to night. These were things advertised by DigiFX Interactive. Sadly, DigiFX Interactive closed down in late 1997 due to financial difficulties. When the team was disbanded, they were also working on another canceled titles such as Mission to the Nexus and Kaiju. The Girl Who Leaped Through Time is a canceled adventure game that was planned around 1998 by Bandai for the PlayStation. The game was based around the 1967 novel by Yasuta Tsutsui and was possibly related to the 1997 movie as well. Based on the available footage from the VHS edition of the 1997 movie and a CD-ROM from the PlayStation Club magazine, the gameplay of The Girl Who Leaped Through Time resembled that of Revelation's Persona on the PS1, featuring a top-down 2D exploration and animated cutscenes. To our knowledge, there was no combat in the game, but it may have included a dating sim mechanics. Character design for this lost PS1 game was by Mini Sakurano, who at the time was working on Mamote Saguten. Please forgive me. And the scenario was written by Hiroshi Yamaguchi, mostly known for his participation in the Genax and Gonzo. A preview was published in Genki PlayStation Magazine Volume 76, June 1998. It's unknown why the game was cancelled. XIII is an action-adventure game that was developed by Sony and Team XIII for the PlayStation 2. XIII was originally planned for the PlayStation 1, but after 2 years of development, the team ran into limitations on the PS1 hardware and faced a critical choice, either to terminate the project or restart it on the PS2. Of course, they chose to restart development on the PS2, and I'm glad they did because we wouldn't have this beautiful game. Hey Sony, I'm still waiting for that XIII remake like the Shadow of the Colossus remake. The game's concept began in 1997 on the PlayStation 1 when Uda and a handful of other artists put together a pilot movie as a proof of concept using the program Lightwave 3D on a Commodore Amiga computer. The full pilot movie would sadly no longer exist, but pieces of it can be found combined with clips from the PS1 prototype of the game in this video. This video was released on a Japanese-only bonus DVD that acted as a pre-order bonus for copies of Shadow of the Colossus in 2005, known as Nikko DVD, presumably a play on the title Ikko and the Japanese symbol for the number 2. Ikko and Yorda were originally designed differently from their final appearances in the game. Ikko had longer horns and Yorda wore a poncho. Additionally, the plot was different. Ikko was trying to return Yorda back to her room in the castle after she has been kidnapped by the warriors. Yuta believed that this version contained too much detail for the graphics engine that they had developed for the PS1, so he replaced the warriors with the shadow creatures. Development switched to the PlayStation 2 in late 1999, which gave the team a more powerful platform to better achieve their original goals. The elements present around this time included a storyline trying to get Yorda back to her room rather than the all-out escape from the castle and the enemies that resembled the horned warriors seen at the beginning of the final game rather than the shadowy wraiths. And there you have it, lost and cancelled PS1 games. Thank you if you made it to the end of the video, I gladly appreciate it. And if you have any suggestions, thoughts, additional information about these games, feel free to share them in the comment section below. I'd love to hear your insights. Don't forget to like the video if you found it interesting, and consider subscribing for more content like this. And thanks again for watching, and I will see you in the next video.